Welcome to Leadership to Go. My name is Pari Namazie. I am an executive and leadership coach and the managing partner at UNEPA. Join me as I explore leadership insights from all walks of life. So I am very excited to have Jim Herman here with me. Welcome, Jim.
Aloha, Perry. Thanks so much for inviting me on board. Looking forward to our chat.
And Jim, who I've known for a few years now, we met in coaching school together, and and we've been in touch for now how many years? 5, 6 years?
About 6 years, yeah.
6 years. It's funny. I usually talk about people and I say I've known them 20 years, but I haven't known you 20 years. I'm looking forward to knowing you 20 years.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. Thank you, Perry. I feel the same.
And Jim sits here with this beautiful background, and he really has that background, but it is in Hawaii and it is late at night. And I love the fact that you, from anywhere in the world, whenever you connect, you have this beautiful Hawaiian spirit that you bring with you.
Mm.
Um,
Thank you.
and
The
I
aloha spirit is very
The
important.
aloha spirit. And you have to tell us a little
Exactly.
bit about what the aloha spirit is. And you have to, share that with the whole world, I think. We need that spirit, I think.
Yeah, perfect.
And I'll share a little bit of Jim's background, but Jim, you're going to tell us more. I mean, you've
Hmm.
had an amazing life and an amazing career. And I think every time I speak with you, I'm always so um, in awe of all that you've done and not just your achievements, but your wisdom and your experiences and your honesty and your humility. Um, yeah, I constantly learn from you every single time, and it's
These are the times, Perry, I just wish my wife could be here to hear this because I don't think she'd agree with you.
and
But yeah, it
humor and
takes
humor.
time.
You bring a lot of humor always, and really I appreciate it. And as we were preparing for the interview, you were telling me a little bit of your background and things I didn't know of, starting at the age of 15, I think, as a janitor, and working in the army, and then in the U.S. State Department, and um, you went around the world as head of consular services, working in different embassies, so as a diplomat, and now you've pivoted out of that career into coaching and as an executive coach. And I know you continue your learning and education, even in restorative justice and things like that. So it's just been amazing, phenomenal. Tell us a little bit about your journey and what sort of stands out for you.
Yeah, so I have been incredibly fortunate, blessed, lucky, because I am not much of a self-planner for my life, right? So, and I grew up as a military brat. We say in America that my dad was in the army, so we traveled quite a bit. And we had our built-in support group because I had four siblings, an older sister and three younger brothers. My older sister was a gift because she taught me from a very early age that you better listen to the women in your life or they're just going to make your life very miserable. So I learned very early on to appreciate strong women. My sister is a year older and she is still the boss of all of us boys by no question about it. So that lesson was good. And because we moved around a lot, I don't know if it's because, but I never felt the need to plan my own life. I'm pretty good at strategic planning and thinking about businesses, but my life has just been one constant surprise for me. I think my actual first job was as a camp counselor for kids when I was still a kid. So I've been teaching since I was 13 or 14, from swimming to counseling. And then my next real job was as a janitor. Um, and it's just been an amazing journey where I just seem to somehow magically keep falling up from after graduating from high school, not really knowing what I wanted to do and diving into some college, but really hitchhiking around the United States on and off for 2 years, having some crazy adventures, and then enlisting in the Air Force. I was a Chinese linguist in the Air Force as an enlisted guy, and then meeting my future wife when I was in Okinawa, to going to the graduating from the University of Hawaii, to teaching English in Japan, becoming a diplomat, and doing that for 28 years, and then 6 years ago retiring to become an executive coach. None of it planned, all of it completely accidental, and just being fortunate that we live in this time where opportunities are out there. And
Mm.
they were just very fortunate to have a very broad background, to be curious and to be able to connect with people. Makes all the
Yeah.
difference.
And that's lovely that you say that, being curious. It when I hear you talk about this, there's also, I think there's this confidence about you. Did that sort
Mm.
of come from family? Because you shifted around, but there was something that was strong and
Mhm.
grounding in you in your journey. Because not many people can take those risks and jump into this and that without knowing what that's going to look like.
Yeah, certainly that was the family because I've always believed no matter where I'm at that I could go home, that my parents would take me back. And that's amazing. And if they didn't take me back, my brothers or sister would take me back.
Mm.
Um, so it's deeply grounded in that, I think we talk about it as attachment theory, right? That I was securely attached to that. And that I knew whatever craziness that I would get into, I could always go back home. And
Mm.
then growing up here in Hawaii in the early 60s when my dad was assigned here, you learn about what it's like to live in paradise, to be grounded in what they call here the Aina. That and that has stayed with me my whole life, and what it means to bring aloha with you, right? To no matter where you're at, it's about connection, it's about welcoming people, it's about treating them with dignity and respect, and it's about living life with joy and fun and not taking yourself so seriously. I remember one of my favorite stories when I came back to go to school here in Hawaii in college was in order to pay for my schooling, I was a guard for a Pinkerton or one of those things, just doing nighttime stuff. And I was able to go be a security guard for the Apple convention on Maui. And I was selected to do the last day where there's this huge convention. This would have been in, I was say 89 or something like that. All the famous people were coming to the Maui Convention Center, and I was there first thing in the morning, and just hanging around, chatting with the gardener. He was there, making sure the place looked good, and just then a very powerful woman who was coordinating all the events. This would have been about 7 o'clock in the morning. Pulled up in her car just to make certain that everything was perfect. Everything was perfect. And just as she got out of her car, stepped onto the sidewalk, all of the sprinklers went off. And so she got wet. Everything was wet and she was pissed. And she comes over to me because I'm the security guard. Shut the water off. I'm like, I can't shut the water off. She turns to the gardener, shut the water off. I can't shut the water off. It's automatic. And she was so pissed. And she said, I'm going to get the governor on the phone. Get me the mayor. She storms off and she's calling on her phone. And as soon as she's out of earshot, the local guy who was a gardener turned to me and said, I don't know why she's so angry. It's going to go off automatically in like 2 minutes. And he was no way going to tell her that because the way she treated it. And that was like such a, oh,
Mm.
maybe you should ask before you get angry. And he was right. 2 minutes later, and she was talking to the governor. I'm sure she thought she solved the problem, right? Went off, and in 5 minutes, it's Hawaii. Everything was dry. Everything was beautiful. It was just such a powerful reminder, right? That, life happens and you can choose how you react to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really nice, good story as well, that you can choose how you react to things. We just forget that, right? We get so tied in the moment and the emotion, and I think it's taking a minute to pause and sometimes maybe even ask why. There must be also a reason.
Really hard to do, right? Really
Yeah.
hard to do,
Yeah.
especially in close relationships or in jobs you care about, right? And that you have your ego wrapped up in.
Yeah.
Really, really hard.
Yeah. And you mentioned ego, Jim, and I know you have had these very um, high profile jobs around the world. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about some of these different positions you've held as head of consular services in different countries. And I know at one time you were telling me you were managing a team and a staff of 600 people. How how do you not get caught up in ego?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm really good at is I try to surround myself with really talented people, and they keep me humble. There are people that are just so amazing. And as a boss, I get credit for all the stuff they're doing, right? So the number one for me, part of it is that as a diplomat and in the military and in my life, you're just constantly moving, right? And if you get wrapped up into this title, I was a minister counselor for Consular Affairs in India. Wow, everybody's really impressed with that title, but what exactly does it mean?
Mm.
And I work for an organization here in Hawaii. They hired a diplomat because of her diplomatic title. I was like, oh my God, that woman is an idiot, regardless of what her title is. So when I see this and I think, oh, am I that way as well? Let me be very curious about not being that kind of person whose title becomes who I am. And, at the end of the day, you're moving in 2 or 3 years. So my last overseas job was the consul general, the principal officer in Frankfurt, Germany, with about 900 employees supporting people around the world, with a 24-hour a day protection detail. It was a big job,
Mm.
and I was happy to leave the job. It was a wonderful, amazing thing, but the title didn't make any difference to me. And just I love wearing Hawaiian shirts when I'm not in Hawaii. I don't wear them so often here in Hawaii because they're kind of boring, but they just annoy people overseas. So I like wearing them. And my staff would just always call if I was going to go out and meet somebody. Jim would prefer not to wear a jacket. Is that okay? A suit and tie and a jacket? And most of them would say, well, we're only putting him on because he's coming. These are the Germans, for God's sakes, right? It's like, okay, so don't put your jacket on, and Jim is not going to wear his. So if, you know, you can get wrapped up in the title, and man, when you do that,
Mm.
it limits who you are and it limits your options, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but it's the best I can do right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, however, when people, what is it that they do get wrapped up in the ego and the title? Is it is it part of feeling important? Is it an insecurity? Is it, in a way, maybe it's also protecting us from something? How do you see that?
Well, I mean, I think we all grow up naming things, right? And naming thing gives them meaning. And if I'm the minister counselor for consular affairs, that must mean something. If I'm the executive director, that must mean something. And if you're in a hierarchical organization that insists on power over people, it
Mm.
doesn't make a different title. And I could say that it doesn't, but man, when I walk in the room as the consul general, it does make a difference. Regardless of whether I want it to or not, it does. And so how do you really separate yourself from these titles that are important?
Mm.
I think it makes a difference in how the space you create for people, the permission you give to people to be present with you.
Mm.
And some people, regardless of how I wanted to be, they could not let go of the fact that I was the principal officer, the consul general. And that's okay. That's okay. They wanted me to tell them what to do, which was
Yeah.
always hard for me.
Yeah.
But some people needed that structure in order to feel safe.
Mm.
I never did need that. Some people need the title in order to feel safe, right? That this means I've arrived for the moment.
Mm.
Yeah, it seems very self-limiting to me.
Mm.
I
But
say,
also,
go
mhm.
ahead. Go ahead.
Also, what I'm hearing, Jim, is that you could understand working with different people that, the different contexts of what they need. So for
Right.
one, the title is important for the other. Um, Maybe the relationship is important for someone else. it's giving instructions and having that structure. So you sort of were able to navigate that and adapt to what they need.
I think at the end of the day, maybe this answers the question a little better, is that people are people, right?
Mm,
We need connection. We need to be seen and heard. People show up at work and in life because they want to have an impact. They want to connect with people. And if you can allow them that,
mm,
it makes a huge difference, right? And it's, I think showing up that way gives yourself permission to say what needs to say to help others, whether it's your
mm,
boss, whether it's your peers, whether it's your subordinates. Just another short, boring story. When I was in Okinawa, my boss, I was a very junior officer. I was a vice consul, so about as low as you can go. And my boss foolishly asked me to go represent him in a meeting with a bunch of the 2 and 3 star generals for the Marine bases. Um, a really foolish thing to do. And of course, he says, Jim, don't say anything, just take notes and come back. It's like, why are you sending me? That's a really bad idea, but okay, whatever. And so got to a point where something bad had happened in Okinawa. And the JAG, the Judge Advocate General, the lawyer for the generals, had made a recommendation to shut down the city, to put a curfew on the city. And everybody in the circle, all the military guys went around and said, oh, yeah, great idea. Yeah, great idea, great idea. And it gets to me, and I have no power in this meeting, right? I'm like a second lieutenant equivalent, so a very junior guy. And it gets to me, and I just said, honestly, I just don't understand what we're doing here. You're punishing a town because this is a big economic punishment for something they had nothing to do with. The people who caused this problem were the people on this ship. It seems like that's a leadership problem on the ship, not why I'm confused about why we're punishing the town. I didn't have an answer. I could have been completely wrong. And they just all looked at me like I was like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And then the general said, yeah, that's a really good question. Let's go back and think of this through again. Because part of their mission there was to build ties with the local populace. It's
mm,
like, this town just happened to be where this happened. But the judge advocate general's recommendation was spot on. This is one way to solve the problem. But it's like, is this really what we want to be doing?
mm,
And so I think, if you're confident, if you don't need to be right, you can ask questions in ways that
mm,
people will listen to you. The general certainly could have said, yeah, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Thank you for participating.
mm.
But because I wasn't insisting, because I wasn't accusing them of anything, he actually listened and they
Yeah.
chose to do something different.
Yeah. And I think that space, I see so often in companies where they say, if we have psychological safety, if we have that kind of
Mm,
confidence, you should be able to speak out. And we want that in
mm,
organizations. We want to have people speak out, not fear what's going to happen if
right.
you do speak out. Um, and a lot of times I think it's, in your case, I always love that you say you've made so many mistakes and that's just in your nature. But I think so for so many people, it's really that they need to claim that space, and that's
Mm.
the leader's role maybe to give them that confidence that speak up. No answer is wrong. Mistakes are welcomed. Failure is welcome. We're going to learn from that. How do you see that? Is that a role of leadership?
Yeah. So I heard I use psychological safety a lot. And the other day's class I was taking, they used the idea of creating brave space. And that really resonated with me, right? That can
Mm,
you create a space where people can be brave and say what they need to say?
mm,
And so again, you said you like my story, so I'll give you one more story. When I was in China, I took over a really dysfunctional visa unit. Um, and I took it over. It was really a big mistake for me to do. I was in a very nice, cushy job, and I took it over because I was appalled at how it was running and how they were treating people in the office as well as our applicants. And I gave some very clear instructions about when I would take the And so one of them was I wanted to pick my deputy because there was some talented people there, and I chose this really talented young woman, and I'd been at this post for about 9 months. So everybody knew me. It was a big, big operation, and she was skeptical because they had been so badly treated, and so we had a really clear agreement about what her role was and what my role was. And my first day, when I went down to take over the operation and she was a deputy, it was a complete disaster. It was worse than I could have ever imagined. And I was just running around. And with new jobs, sometimes you have to do this, right? You just run around putting out fires and try to figure out how to get rid of those fires as quickly as possible. And at the end of the day, and it was a long day, starting at 6, so I get back to my office at 6 p.m. and I'm just sitting there thinking, oh my God, what an idiot. Why did I agree to do this? And I'm beat. It's been a long day. And this very talented young woman comes in and knocks on the door and says, Jim, can I chat with you? And I thought, she's going to come in and we're going to share our pain and suffering, bond, fine. And she sits down and says, sure, have a seat. And she says, Jim, I'm so angry at you. You lied to me. You told me that I would have complete authority in this area, and you made 3 decisions in this area today. And I was really unhappy with it, right? Because in my mind, it was like, yeah, just one, they were the right decisions that you were going to make anyway. And
Mm,
two, we were all busy, right? And I was just trying to put out a fire.
mm,
But I took a deep breath and I said, caught my breath. And then when I finally felt settled, I looked at her and said, you are so right. I am so sorry I screwed up. And here's how I'm going to make it right. I'm going to go out tomorrow morning in our stand up. I'm going to apologize to you. I'm going to remind everybody that I do not make decisions in this area and that they have to go to you. Is there anything else I can do to make this right? How can I fix this? And she just took a deep breath. She stood up and she said, F you, Jim. Now I can't even be angry at you, and stormed off. Right. And so to me, if you're a boss and you can create the space where one, somebody can come and tell you you screwed up, and two, you can reflect on it before you react, that because I was tired and cranky and I could have very easily said, what are you talking about? But I was able to regulate that and say, she's right. I screwed up. It
yeah,
cost me nothing to say
yeah,
that. And from that moment on, we were the best team ever, right? She did not have to carry the burden of being pissed at me without sharing it with me. We fixed it. Everybody understood the apology, never had another issue. And
mm,
if there was an issue, she would come up and tell me right away and not wait till the end of the day. It's like,
mm.
awesome.
That lovely story. Thank you. There were so many interesting points in that story about, creating the psychologically safe space, your role and how you handle that as a leader. I loved when you also said, take a minute and pause. Because if we react immediately, we're always going to be it's going to be an emotion outburst, especially if you're under a lot of pressure.
And
Um,
tired and
and
cranky.
tired and cranky and uh and then being honest, owning that is so important. And I see that space. I don't see that as a space leaders are at very often, to own their mistake and really name it and apologize for something. So lovely story. Thank you.
It's doable. And it was, when I knew that I had chosen the right person. She was amazing. I
Mm,
knew that I had screwed up. And even
mm,
though I had a rationale for it, I knew that it was not okay.
yeah,
And from my perspective, I was being selfish because that meant I never had to deal with this again, right? That
yeah.
this was going to be fixed today.
Mm,
But, all that happened in the space of like 1 or 2 breaths, right?
mm, mm.
So
Really.
it doesn't happen by accident. You actually have to be it, and she could tell I was sincere, right? That was the other thing. It's
Yeah.
really hard to fake that reaction.
Yeah. And Jim, I think for leaders as well, that's a journey, right? You don't know that from the beginning. And I always say,
Impossible.
for us also working as executive coaches with the leaders that we are coaching and supporting, it's always that journey of being able to reflect, being aware of who they are and what they're bringing up. And the question I get so often, sorry,
No,
should have
no problem.
muted. Um, Question I get often is, how am I perceived by others? Getting that feedback, understanding what are they doing wrong in that position of power. A lot of times you're not told. You're just expected to perform, right? And so how do being able to really create that space for feed forward to get
Right.
feedback from people, I think is very valuable for every leader.
Well, and I mean, it gets into a much longer conversation about what is our theory of change as coaches, right? That most of us would say if push comes to shove, okay, self-awareness, you start with there's a problem, and you agree that there is a different way you would like to be, and then there's lots of ways to help them get there, right? Marshall Goldsmith and the feed forward, the stakeholder-centered approach. There's a ton of ways to get there, but it has to start with the self-awareness is our basic theory of change. And Marshall Goldsmith in the stakeholder-centered approach, he teaches his coaches, you need to say no to most of the people who come to you for coaching because this technique will only work if they want to change,
Mm,
right? And so that's one theory of change. There's lots of others, but that's the easiest one to explain to people. And it's the one that works for the majority of people. Let's help you get self-aware. Let's figure out how you want to be,
yeah,
and then let's figure out how to help you get there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's a
and
beautiful.
it's doable, but it doesn't work for everybody. And
Yeah.
it can be a rather superficial coaching style, but it may be all the people need and all they're willing to do.
Mm. I remember, I love this story we had in our coaching school together. I remember our leader said the story about monkeys on a tree. Do you remember that, Jim?
I do, but tell it to me again. You've told me a few times, and I don't remember it as well as you.
No,
So,
it was such a weird story. I was like, why? What's the relevance of this? And it hit me later, and I keep
Mhm.
quoting the story. So she was saying that, coaching is like there are these monkeys jumping on a tree, and they'll just keep adding so many monkeys, but the tree won't shift. Nothing, not
Right.
even won't even swagger.
Right.
So
Right.
finally, that one monkey
Right.
on the tree, and the branch will break.
Break. Right.
And
Yeah.
and coaching is a bit like that.
Right.
Or perhaps the journey in life. Sometimes these things happen. You're given the messages, you're given the
Mhm.
tools, but we don't change until finally, one click. We have
Right.
one
The
moment
straw that breaks the camel's back,
straw
right?
that
There's
breaks the
that point.
camel's
Yeah.
back. And
Yeah.
I don't think all of those monkeys are bad. They're all giving weight to the tree. They're all
Right.
supporting us to learn and become so self-aware. But that moment of change is that last
Right.
monkey who breaks the
Right.
branch.
And can you create a safe space that they can allow that last monkey down? And
Yeah.
so many people that I see do not allow themselves to go deep enough to even allow the monkeys, right? They don't even see the monkeys.
Yeah.
And those people are tough to coach. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
It's a very good point.
and
Coming
some of
back
them are
to,
even happy, right? But they're not really happy.
yeah.
So,
Jim, I know our 30 minutes are already up. My gosh, and
yeah,
you and I, we can like chat and chat.
we
And
can exactly.
I haven't even started asking you my main questions. And
Yes, exactly.
but but let me, for me your entire journey has been so interesting. And I would have loved to take so much from this for our audience to learn. Um a little bit on legacy, right? Because you working in the as a diplomat, you come into an organization for a few years, you are working with a team that you inherit. You cannot change culture. There's not so much you can change when you're there for a short time. How do you have impact? How do you know you're having impact?
Well, the nice thing about consular work as a diplomat is that you do impact people's lives every day. And you can have an impact from day one by reminding your team that we're treating people with dignity and respect, even if we have to say no, even if it's a sad case, it doesn't matter. These are people, not little widgets that we're pushing through. So in India, we processed about 700,000 visas a year. That's 700,000 opportunities to touch people's lives, where its former assistant secretary talked about consular officers touch people's lives. We can do that in a positive way. This is, for the majority of them, the only interaction they will ever have with the US government official.
Mm.
You can treat them with dignity and respect. So in the larger sense of how you impact people, if you think about, we were denying about 30% of the cases. So in 3 years, we were issuing what, 1.5, 1.6 million visas. Those people's lives, for many of them, changed forever because of that, unbeknownst to them, of all the mechanisms that went behind it. In terms of the culture and then office space. So what I learned in the process of moving so many times is the moment you leave, it's all done, right? The person behind you can change everything
Mm.
about the process, about the workflow. What they can't change is the way that you touched people you work for. And so you can, and I got much better at creating processes that were really hard to change because um, it, there are ways that you can do that. But the most important is training people to act in certain ways, training people to think in certain ways, giving people the space to do what they need to do. It's really hard to undo that, right? So to feel connected, to feel loved and respected, to feel like you're being trusted to do the job you were hired to do. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard. It's impossible to take away those type of feelings and connections.
Yeah. It's that saying, right? Maya Angelou's saying of people might forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you feel. Something
How you
around.
made them feel. Yeah, how you made them feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe that 100%. And it's at the end of the day, leadership, the best leadership, in my view, is all about connections. There
Mm.
are other styles of leadership, as we know, but
Mm.
that type of leadership causes a lot of harm. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I'd love to ask you for our, maybe my last question to you, for our young aspiring leaders, what is your wish for them?
So my wish is that they make lots of mistakes and grow from them. That I think about it as, these fail forward or fail up. It's, if you're not making mistakes, you're not doing your job. And you want to try to make mistakes that you can recover from and that you do from positive intent and not from your ego. And I got in a lot of trouble at times when my ego would push me in the wrong ways, but and that was a long time ago. So it's much better if you're focused on mission and purpose and you make a mistake that way, people forgive you, right? Because it is just what it is. If you're doing it because of your ego, man, it's hard to recover from that.
Yeah. Jim, thank you. I know we had so much more to talk about, but you and I are going to chat about all these things
Yeah,
a
that's
bit.
right. Exactly. I think there's a lot of deep stuff we touched on today. So thank you for having me and letting me share. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Jim. Really appreciate it.